Give me liberty and give me Annette.
Welcome to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness, a podcast where we talk about the Constitution, history, politics, and pretty much anything else I want to talk about. And today's one of those anything else days. You can find this podcast on AnnetteTalks.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, where you can find me at YouTube/Annette Talks. If you go there, you can see videos of all of these podcasts, see what we look like. Also, please subscribe and like and share on YouTube or Facebook.com/Annette Talks. Pretty much you can find me anywhere. All right, and today I'm excited because I'm joined again by Dr. Matt Townsend. Hi, Matt.
Hello, Annette. Good to be with you guys.
You too. So just to give you an introduction again, you are a coach and you do family coaching, individual coaching, parenting coaching, anxiety coaching.
Life, anything to do with life, love, relationships, or leadership. So I do a lot of corporate stuff, a lot of team building, a lot of communication, conflict resolution.
All right, awesome. And I found you, as I mentioned last time, I saw you at a conference and you did this really great talk. And so I'm like, I've got to get this guy on.
Yeah.
And well, we were chatting either before or after, I can't remember which. You mentioned, we were talking about one of your YouTube videos and how when you were at a family gathering, you would take off to go be by yourself. And this is kind of offhanded remark. And I was like, yeah, I relate to that. I like to get off by myself as well. And you said, well, maybe you're a highly sensitive person. And I was like, what? And so that started a whole thing where we talked a little bit about it and how you're doing some work with that. And you said, go research it. And I did. And I found out, wow, I'm a highly sensitive person. And I didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah.
But since I've been researching it, it's like changed everything for me because all of a sudden, like needs that I had and ways that I react to things made sense. And like, it was so comforting because for so many years I thought, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me that I need all this downtime or I need all this alone time? And, like I really feed off of an audience.
Yeah.
But when I go home from that audience or that party where I'm life of the party, like I need to be by myself for several hours.
Right.
So what I'm hoping we can do with this episode is explain what it is to be highly sensitive and what that means for us and how we can help those around us that love us work with us a little bit on this.
Well, it's, when you think about it, but this whole high sensitive thing, you're going to find out comes up everywhere in the world. You see it everywhere all the time. And so I'm a high sensitive and we got to kind of clarify terms, okay? Because everybody sits there and they hear the word, oh, you're a high sensitive, neener. But it doesn't mean what you probably think it means. What they found out is that about 20% of all of the animal kingdom, so 20% of humans, 20% of elephants, 20% of the lions, 20% of giraffes, 20% have evolved this weird trait called high sensitivity. High sensitivity simply means that physiologically our bodies pick up 4 times more information and stimuli than the others, than the other 80%. And so what they've also found, by the way, is that like a lot of times girls get pegged for being sensitive, more sensitive. That's not this because only 20% of women are high sensitive and 20% of men and 20% of lions and 20% of lionesses. So what they found is like evolution doesn't kind of work that way and like how the animals would eventually pick up these traits. It wouldn't work if everybody had this sensitivity and everybody picked up all of this information. It would probably no longer be an advantageous trait. And what the problem with high sensitivity is if you pick up 4 times more noise and smells and sounds, and you notice heat changes in the room, temperature changes, you feel the energy of the people in the room. If you're picking that up, what's the outcome going to be, Annette? What do you feel?
Overloaded.
Overloaded. So do you know what we call that overload in today's day and age?
No.
Anxiety.
Oh, yes. No, you're right. That's
So
the other
there's
thing, because there's anxiety and depression kind of go along with this,
yeah,
which makes total sense with my background as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
Because you kind of go like, I don't know how you put, you fold up into yourself
yeah,
because you can't take it. You can't take
right,
what's going on around you. And
yeah,
it turns into depression or anxiety. But I find that just knowing what's going on
oh yeah.
is normal for me, helps me to not be depressed or anxious because I know how to handle it.
Well, if you see it as a positive trait or a blessing or a gift, then you can use it in the gift way. If you see it as a curse, then you use it to beat yourself up. So these animals that have evolved this high sensitivity and have this high sensitivity, like the elephant that's high sensitive, is the elephant that's going to find the best grass. The elephant that's high sensitive is the elephant that's going to find the water. The high sensitive ones are going to notice the cues, hear the sounds. They're going to see the bushes rustling. They're going to do everything differently. So what we become is the early warning detectors for the rest of the herd and the rest of the tribe. Except here's the problem: we are literally stressing more. If you're picking up 4 times more data, your body stresses more. So what I've just learned when I've been coaching people and in all of my studies and in all of my work is this: if you don't know you're a high sensitive, you think you're kind of a freak show. You think you're out of control. You don't know why you get anxious. So I don't know if you know this, like there is no known cause for anxiety. We don't know exactly what causes it. We'll medicate it all day, but we don't know what causes it. And one of the causes, I will promise, is this sensitivity. So 20% of the population are sensitive, and about 20 to 40% of the population have anxiety. And so I'm going to bet what goes on with a lot of us is we feel that are high sensitives, and I'll teach you how to find out if you are and how to go look into it. But basically, again, it just means you pick up more sensory data. You're a high sensitive if you're at breakfast and you hear somebody chewing and you want to kick them in the throat, you're probably a high sensitive. If you're somebody that a smell, like the minute somebody stepped in dog poop, you notice it, you're a high sensitive.
That sense of smell, by the way, is very annoying. All
Yeah.
my life, I'm like, why do I have to smell everything?
No, I remember playing Little League football and being in the huddle and smelling a guy's pants from across the huddle. And I'm like, Johnny, you got to get your pants washed, dude. And I'm in the huddle trying to get him to get his pants washed. And they're over on the sideline saying, call the play, call the play. So I knew when I was really young that I picked up a lot, but I thought everyone did.
Right.
So I didn't know why it would stress me. I remember as a little kid going to see Santa Claus, and my mom's just like, get up on his lap, climb up on the guy's lap. And I'm looking at her like, what? This guy's gross. This guy's like got dirty Santa pants and his gloves are worn out and his hair doesn't stick to his face. And I'm noticing all of it. And I'm just thinking, what is she trying to do to me here? Kill me with Santa? So if you're a high sensitive, this is basically the cycle of high sensitives. Okay, we get overstimulated and that feels like anxiety to us, so we get stressed. And when we're stressed, we usually do one of two things. We either go overboard in the stress, which is where we blow up, we get angry, we become demanding, we become perfectionistic, or we go under in the anxiety and we veg and we shrink and we watch TV and Netflix and escape. And when we go over or under, it causes depression, because depression is where you're not living up to your standard, your ideal. And so this cycle is what I'm finding out, and I'm writing a book right now that right now is tentatively being called The Anxiety Habit. Because I think anxiety is much more a habit than some diagnosis. There is a ton of stuff you can do differently if you want to get rid of this stress. And one of the first things you've got to do is figure out if you're a high sensitive. Because if you're a high sensitive, you're different, period. So don't try to be like everyone else. Understand you're sensitive. So I call high sensitives Ferraris in a world full of Chevys. So we're great. We're high performance. We have immense potential, but we're not Chevys. We are Ferraris. And Ferraris I teach in my program are awesome on track, and Ferraris are a nightmare off track. So the minute you're out of your realm, your wheelhouse, you're usually not that fun to be with.
Yeah.
But when you've got your routine and you can stay in your routine as a Ferrari, you can crush it. And you can crush it at a level above and beyond everyone. So we tend to be really high performers. We also tend to be perfectionistic. And so we're perfectionistic, by the way, not because we really want perfection. We're perfectionistic because we have 4 times more ways to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not perfection we're seeking. We just have too many ways to do it because we watch, we notice, we pay attention. So if I'm picking up 4 times more ways to greet someone, I want to greet people better. And I'm constantly pushing myself to be better, which in the end, if we're not careful, stresses us. So I am one. I've been one my entire life. And why I started getting more into the high sensitivity is because client after client would come in and they'd all be fighting about the same stuff. I call it the starved stuff. I wrote a book on that.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I have to remind everyone.
there it is. There's the
Really
book.
great book. Yes.
But what I noticed is that a lot of them were more reactive than they kind of needed to be. And I noticed a lot of them were like me. I was fairly reactive too. I tend to react fast too, because once I'm overstimulated, I spin out like a Ferrari spinning out. And so I started studying it, and I found just a ton of content and started changing how I'd live my life. And I'll teach you some tools. And then I'm writing a book now, but we're putting together a workshop that we'll be releasing at the end of the month, end of June. That's basically an online program, and it just goes for 6-week seasons, we call them, 6 weeks at a time. We teach you a tool for about a half hour to an hour, and then we send you emails to help you learn throughout the week on that issue. And then the next week, we teach you another tool. And the goal is to get everybody on the road to peace. And the road to peace, we can probably run through it today. I'll teach you what the acronym PEACE stands for, and we'll get into it. But the whole kind of founding idea behind high sensitivity came from this book by Elaine Aron called The Highly Sensitive Person.
Yep, I just finished it.
And great book, awesome book. Now, Elaine Aron is a PhD psychologist. She's also a way high sensitive person. So what she went through in her life may not be what you went through.
Yeah, it was pretty extreme. I did not relate to her very well because she said,
yeah, I don't either. And I
died a lot.
But she's done the research. And one of my favorite books that she's ever written is called The Highly Sensitive Person in Love.
Oh dear, I've got to get that one.
That one is really good. And that's some of the latest research too, because some people aren't just high sensitives. And so some also are high sensitives and high stimulation seekers.
Oh boy.
So they notice a lot, but they also seek a lot of stimulation.
Oh.
And so by the way, guess what they get diagnosed with?
Oh, ADD?
ADD, ADHD.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that have been diagnosed with ADHD probably don't even have it. They're just really high sensitive. So they have so much information, they think they have ADHD. I remember taking the ACT and sitting there thinking, how is that guy done? How did he finish? He's an idiot. Like, I've been in classes with him and he's done. And why is the clock ticking so loud?
Oh, yeah.
And that person is eating that candy and I can hear the wrapper a mile away. And all of those things are distracting me from my test. So a lot of high sensitives don't test very well.
Yeah, that's me in the bar exam. I have to really be like, I'm not looking up from my computer because. But
notice that's really interesting because one of the big things I teach, so whenever I'm with a client and they're in my office, I turn off my lights. So just the sunlight from the windows come in. And I ask them to notice what they feel. And the minute I turn the lights off, they pretty much universally feel calm. And so what you'll notice for high sensitives is light tends to be a big stimulant for them. So they're people that like to be in darker rooms or use lamps instead of overhead lighting. They usually need sunglasses. But the benefit is simply, if all you did was change the habit of your lighting, 65% of data comes through your eyes. And if you have less light, you have less data to sort. And so just turning off lights, or all the big rage today is for everyone to go get a brand new house with hardwood floors and big windows and white walls, which is so counterintuitive to the high sensitive.
That's why I guess that's why when I walk into a white house, I'm like, oh, this is
too much.
Yes.
And but like with loud floors, so you can hear the kids banging, and every sound echoes ×4. So we tend to overstimulate a lot more. But remember too, that this has nothing to do with necessarily being an introvert or an extrovert. But high sensitives, like Ferraris, tend to like fewer people around them. Their Ferraris don't love a lot of people leaning on their car. And being a Ferrari is a pretty stressful thing, right? So if I gave you a $500,000 Ferrari, where would you park it?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Everything about your life with a Ferrari is harder. Everything. Parking, washing it, gassing it. Somebody lent me a Porsche Carrera in California, and I was going to go put gas in it, and I couldn't figure out what gas to put in it.
Yeah.
And I looked everywhere. I could not, because I didn't want to put the wrong gas. And it seems like he'd put the highest premium gas, but is it unleaded or what is it? Anyway, I had to call him. He's like, dude, just unleaded. Relax. So high sensitives tend to feel like a Ferrari. They tend to feel every bump. As Ferraris and high sensitives, we tend to anticipate every corner. We're always thinking ahead. And part of that is because we're coming in so fast. Right. Our brains work really fast because we've already assimilated a lot of information. One of the coolest things about being a high sensitive is that you tend to live a really deep life, but a really narrow life. So I always joke that Ferraris live a life that's 50 feet wide, 50 miles deep. And everyone else lives a life that's 50 miles wide, 50 inches deep. Very shallow, very wide. But Ferraris, because we iterate a lot, we think a lot, everything we do, we reiterate and we reiterate in our heads. So we're constantly digging a deeper thought process. Now, in the end, we don't have as much variety as everyone, but we have profound insight. And so we like to stay in our wheelhouse, and we like to kind of, we like to think. And what's weird is that thinking makes us, we're already a little more emotionally amped. And when you have emotion and you're amped, you're more likely to remember.
Right.
So high sensitives tend to have a pretty good memory about emotional events.
Yeah, even more than we want a lot of times.
Which is problematic. So when people come back from war, about 20% that have been in combat situations come back with PTSD. So guess who they are? They're the high sensitives.
Combat. I could not, because I have PTSD from my marriage, and
by the way, that wouldn't happen to a Chevy.
No.
That happened. And so I do a lot of work with women's shelters, battered shelters. And there's one here in Utah that I go into, and I went there one time. There's about 100 people in the room, and we did the test to find out who were high sensitives. And about literally 94% of the room were high sensitive.
Oh.
Which, when you think about it, it doesn't make sense, because that's not the norm, right? The norm is 20%.
Right.
But the people that would go to a battered shelter and stay and keep going to these meetings for years are those that probably are more in need of managing their sensitivity.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also wonder now, because you talk about we process so much, if that's one of the reasons why I talk too fast. Because people are
No,
always
it is.
saying, slow down. Well,
Yeah.
because I say what comes into my head,
Yeah.
it comes in so quickly that I feel like if I don't get it out,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm going
You'll
to explode.
lose it. Yeah. No, and this is one of the neat things about it, Annette, is there's no right way to be a high sensitive. You're just figuring it out on top of figuring out all your other strengths, all your other gifts, all your other traits, all your other genetic influences. So there's no right way to do it. A lot of high sensitives talk fast and they track fast. They read well. They get what people are meaning. A lot of high sensitives also feel like they can read your mind a little bit, like they're intuitive. Sometimes I even believe they're empathic. So anytime you've heard of empaths, I would bet bucks empaths are nothing more than high sensitives that know how to take it to the next level.
Right.
And so we're really good at it. High sensitives are more likely to feel the spirit. You're more attuned to things like that. You're more likely to feel violated. You're more likely to feel shocked when somebody says something shocking. You're more likely to kind of be overwhelmed by anything. Temperature, smells, watching protests on TV,
Oh,
TV,
yes.
media.
I have to say that this whole COVID-19 thing has been extremely difficult on me because, well, for one thing, it's this climate of fear with masks everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I can't stand, I won't wear one for one thing, but when I go out, if I see more than half of the people wearing them, I will get my business done and get out because I can't stand that.
Yeah. See, that's, by the way, and notice it again, like, it's because you're a sensory person. So the senses with a mask on, you notice everything about it. You notice what it does to your makeup. You notice that your face is more moist. You notice the hot air, so you feel warmer. I mean, you notice everything, where again, others don't. And what's really cool, like when you're married and struggling, you can sometimes, just knowing you're a high sensitive, you can recognize that they're not trying to hurt me. They just don't get it. They don't get me.
Right.
But the coolest thing, and Ferraris aren't better than Chevys. They're not. But we're good at what we do when we do it. And a Ferrari shouldn't go climb a mountain and go four-wheeling, but a Chevy can. And a Chevy Suburban can throw 8 people in it, but you don't throw 8 people in a Ferrari. So a lot of Ferraris are kind of naturally a little bit more introverted. About 70% of high sensitive are introverted, but some are extroverted. I'm probably more of an ambivert, where I can do what I am, honestly, is a socially gifted introvert, high sensitive. And so I'm real good with people. They all think I'm comfortable, but it literally just drains me emotionally.
Yeah.
Then when I'm done, like you, I need to go recuperate and bring my energy back.
That's what I feel like. I used to think of it as an outgoing introvert, but now I think I'm probably closer to what you just described, because I've had people say, you are not an introvert. I see you at the party. I have to go to the parties and I'm the life of the party. I'm the center of attention for a little while. I need to go off and be just with one person and talk with and that's where I like recharge. And then I go home for several hours.
That's it. By the way, so notice that, though, you're already figuring it out, because what happens with most humans, and even high sensitives, we all take off in the morning and we just shoot up like a rocket and we go, and we crash. The problem with that is it doesn't work as a Ferrari, right? So you can't go run a Ferrari all day long, crash all day long, crash. It's a sensitive instrument. And so if you notice, they race it on the track. They'll race it 3 hours, then they'll bring it off. They'll pit, they'll get it what it needs, and it'll be taken off, and then it'll rest 20 hours.
Right.
Then they'll put the Ferrari, and they'll lube it up and tune it up and get it all ready again. So the idea is, with high sensitivity, is called oscillation, where your goal should be take off, go to that first meeting, crush it, then come down, and then go up to your next meeting, crush it, come down. Go up, crush it, and you oscillate through the day. And I honestly believe, like the Savior, I believe he was a high sensitive. I believe he was the ultimate counselor, ultimate prophet, and the high sensitive kind of trait, it's a temperament trait is really what it is. It's how you manage the data and the emotions of the world. And some of us are really good at, taking the data in, iterating the data, making sense of the patterns, and some aren't. And what others are good at is just implementing the data.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would never make really good like Navy SEALs.
No.
We'd never make maybe good like military, soldiers that are around firing a lot of weapons, but we'd make awesome intelligence officers.
Right.
We'd make wonderful counselors, great doctors. But if you don't learn to oscillate and come down regularly throughout the day, you don't get to be your best self.
Right. And that's what one of the things that the book said is if you do not figure out how to tailor your life around that, you're going to be miserable. And yeah, I didn't realize, it's just like 3-4 years ago that I finally figured it out. There are certain office jobs I cannot do. Yeah. I just can't. It doesn't work for me. And I will be miserable if I try to force myself into that.
That's right.
And practicing law was kind of not a good fit for me. Parts of it, yes, right. But parts of it, no. And I could not be a courtroom lawyer because it would be way too much.
You'd feel everything about your client. You'd feel all of their victim issues. You'd feel everything. So, but you would be great at advocating in a company to know how to take a nonprofit somewhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? You'd be great at seeing the opportunities. And the reality is that the high sensitives are here to protect the whole herd.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not better, but we're certainly not worse. And we're not necessarily, so this is where all this mental health comes in. And I worry because we don't even know what anxiety is, but I'll give you an anti-anxiety drug. And the minute I do that, which is great if you need it, except you can also destimulate anyway.
Right.
You can learn to change some of your habits. And if you'll just start changing the habits, you may not need to numb yourself. Because if you have a Ferrari, we don't usually try to take the engine out of the Ferrari to numb it so it's less powerful.
Right.
We want to maintain the Ferrari and we want to destimulate the stress. And those become habits. So in my world, and this is one of the things we teach on the road to peace, one of my lessons is that if you are a Ferrari, so if somebody's out there and they're listening and they know they're a Ferrari, then they've got to basically decide if they're going to align their life to that. If you're a Ferrari, then things have got to change. And a lot of people that are Ferraris, what they like to do is as little as they can, and then they like to park their Ferrari and pit it and cover it and hide it from everyone else. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you're not born and wired to be a Ferrari to just go hide.
Right.
And when you do, it'll depress you. You're also not born to be a Ferrari and to go act like a Chevy. You're a Ferrari. So if you are a high sensitive, you are uniquely qualified to go bring it on. You're uniquely gifted and literally you're wired to be way good at it. So me not knowing this, I chose a profession that allows me to do this every day and to read people every day. But after every client, I need about 10 minutes to come down. And then I get the next client and it takes me up and I need 10 minutes to come down. So the basic rule is you need to decide if you're a Ferrari. If you're a Ferrari, then we also need to start to get on what I call the road to peace. The road to peace are 5 steps, and each one of the steps will take you a little bit deeper, a little bit further into how to drive this Ferrari. So your body is the sensitive machine. You're the body's the Ferrari, okay? Then if your body's the Ferrari, the P in the road to peace is you've got to put yourself in the driver's seat. You're the driver. No one else can drive your Ferrari. When you were young, your mom tried to, and you hated her for it. Your dad tried to put you in situations you hated. Mom tried to get me to sit on Santa's lap, hated it. And I noticed stuff, but I never knew what was going on. So one of the goals is you need to start taking responsibility and know that you are able to drive this thing. You're not a victim. You're not a victim of Ferrari hood. You experience stuff. But the cool thing about being a Ferrari, by the way, too, is it can keep you from being hurt. If you have a high performance car with a lot of power, you can get out of a lot of stuff. And you can also stop on a dime. So you've got agility that others don't have. But if you're the driver of this car and you're in the seat, then the first rule of putting yourself in the driver's seat is be present. Be in the now. A lot of Ferrari drivers and high sensitives live in the future because they're always anticipating.
Yes.
There's no peace in the future. Remember, now is the time to prepare to meet God, right now. Not tomorrow, right now. What can I do right now? So when you're in the driver's seat, also, if you're in the now, make sure you've got a clear vision. So one of the things I teach all the drivers and we take all of our people through is first we help them identify if they're a Ferrari. By the way, anybody out there could just go Google highly sensitive person test, highly sensitive person test by Elaine Aaron, and it'll come up and you can just go take it. I'm building a little bit, it's a bigger assessment. Sometimes her assessment doesn't seem to relate to people. Like they don't, caffeine, they don't ever think about, or some people do, or scary movies she brings up in her assessment.
Yeah, and I never
scary.
scary
Yeah.
movies.
So I've got some other things that I use, but just decide if you are, and figure it out. If you're a high sensitive, you need to know it. Then put yourself in the driver's seat. Part of being a driver is you've got to have a clear vision of what it looks like to win the race. What does winning your race in life mean? Right? You're not racing anyone else. You're racing yourself. What is your goal? What is it that you uniquely need to bring to this world with this Ferrari? So in the program, I sit people down and they're going to start to create a really inspiring vision of what they want to become. If I took all the anxiety away and you were an amazing Ferrari driver, what would you then want to go do? And I want that clear in every driver's head. Because once they know that, then every turn, every action is going to come back to that point. What is it that they're trying to achieve? I also want you, once you have a clear vision, think of that. In a car, you have a really clear vision of what things are going to look like. If you have obstructed views, it's going to impact you. Also, drivers don't drive through their rear view mirror. They drive through their window, their vision. And we also, as drivers, need to have what I call a dashboard. And the dashboard are just paying attention to certain metrics. If you're driving your Ferrari, you need to know when you're getting stressed. Yeah. You need to know when you're getting tired. You need to know when you're wearing out. So those are all things that I'll teach in the Road to Peace program. The high sensitive, if you're high sensitive, put yourself in the driver's seat. The E of the Road to Peace is to engage all cylinders. Ferraris can be up to 12-cylinder engines. You already have, I teach, 6 cylinders at your disposal. You already are a high sensitive, which is a power source. You also have 5 unique signature strengths that are available to everyone. So in the program, I sit you down and have you go take an assessment to identify what your character strengths are. And when you take the assessment, these I believe are spiritual gifts that are unique to you. But the researchers in positive psychology have identified 24 unique strengths that in and of themselves, each of them individually are standalone strengths that are not made up by any other strength. And that strength helps you become happy and centered. And so, Mike, for example, my number 1 strength is social intelligence. My number 2 strength is spirituality. My 3rd strength is love of learning. My 4th strength is creativity. My 5th strength is humor and playfulness. So when I'm a high sensitive and I use my 5 strengths, I'm totally powered to soar. But if you don't know what your strengths are, you can't engage those. So once you start to get anxious and stressed, anytime, like in a couple hours, 3 hours, I'm going to go do an 8-minute television segment for a local television station in Salt Lake. And I do it twice a week. And I still get a little nervous going to do it. But the second I start getting nervous, I notice it because I'm sensitive. And I literally state it out loud. Oh, it looks like my anxiety's kicking in. And then I just go right to my strength of social intelligence, perspective, wisdom, creativity. I know that I'm world class in those 5 areas, and I'm sensitive, so I can read the situation. I'll be fine. And immediately when I reset like that, I calm down.
Nice.
Put yourself in the driver's seat. Engage all your cylinders. So there's other cylinders we can engage, like a really strong vision. That's your 7th cylinder. Energy. A lot of us don't have energy, so we don't have the power we need. Another one is time. Focus is another one. So those are other ones that we'll get into in the workshop and teach you that you've got tools at your disposal. You just got to make sure you're using them regularly.
So
The
this
next
workshop you're starting at the end of the month, right?
Yeah, the workshop's going to start at the end of the month. And if you want more information on it, you can go to matttownsend.com. And at the very top of matttownsend.com, there's a button that says Road to Peace. If you click on that, you can put your name in and we'll put you on the mailing list. We're going to start it, and it's just going to start. It goes for 6 weeks, and you can cancel if you want to cancel it. It's $80, we're thinking. It's $80 for the 6 weeks.
That's
and
awesome.
It'll give you, for those 6 weeks, it'll give you 7 hours of video content of me teaching, and then you'll get emails every day for activities to do.
I can't wait to sign up. I'm excited.
It's so cool. And then that'll go on for season after season.
Awesome.
So put yourself in the driver's seat, engage all the cylinders, accelerate action on solutions. A lot of times what we do is we accelerate more stories about how messed up everyone else in the world is. And we're just spinning and creating all this smoke. And what you'll find is it never brings you peace if you're not dealing with your anxiety and your high sensitivity. So find solutions. Then what we teach is customize your path and your roadmap. This is your roadmap. Cut your map. What works for you? And we start teaching you how to make habits around things that work. Like I know, craziest thing in my life is I know that if I swim, and by the way, I'm not a swimmer, but I swim. I actually am now after 2.5 years, but I never swam in my life. I learned to drown when I was swimming. But when I swim, it's the perfect exercise for me because you can't really listen to anything very easily. So I have to think, but no one can talk to me.
Right.
And when I swim, it gets me so much oxygen because I've learned, I use a snorkel, by the way, a dorkel, I call it. And I can go, I started not being able to swim a lap. And now today I swam 72 laps in about 50 minutes. And
it's very peaceful too.
It's so peaceful. And it's a solution I figured out and I customize it. And once I do that regularly and I hydrate, I know that I need 80 ounces of water a day. I know I need spiritual connection. So I read scriptures in the morning and I read spiritual books at night. And I know when I do just those things, I know that I'm already more optimized to succeed. So we teach you how to customize your own path. And then the last thing we teach, the E of the Road to Peace, is to evaluate with your essence, not your ego. And what that's basically about is start measuring yourself by your light, not your darkness. Measure yourself by your spirit, by what you're called to become. Go back to your mission and your purpose and start identifying daily where you're succeeding and start literally showing line upon line how you're starting to create the change that you need. And what's so cool is when you do that, you'll feel peace. If I see every day, it's every day. Every day I see my purpose being fulfilled in my life through my strengths, my character strengths, and my high sensitivity. I would never be what I am without it. And I can always be a little bit more. And my goal is always 1% improvement every day. Just get a little better today, 1%. Because if you get 1% better every day, after a year, you're about 35% better. And so I try to find the one thing I can do today that was prompted through spirit or essence to be my best self. And then I just make sure that one thing happens.
And we're really good at that. We're really good at, as high sensitives in doing that.
And then the other thing is I actually, like, my office is 2 minutes from my house and I'm here a lot. So when I get overstimulated at home, I always need to run to the office for a minute. And I get here, and I can calm down. And when I take my family to church, back when we used to go to attend the ward, back in those days, I'd get stressed getting everyone ready with my wife. And so by the time we're there, I'm not feeling the spirit. Right. So I'd always pull in, drop everyone off, and then I would go park and I'd breathe. And I'm really good now at centering myself and getting back to zero. And then I go in, and by the time I'm done with sacrament and the next hour, I'm a 9 again. And I need to get home. And then I come down.
That explains why, like, a lot of times after sacrament meeting, dealing with my girls, I have to go into the ladies' room and just hang for a few minutes.
No, that's it.
Because I can't.
Nothing wrong with that.
I'm up here, and I have to come down here before I move on to my next meeting. Back in the day, right?
Well, and you know what else? Bringing up your girls is there's a good chance one of them will also be a high sensitive.
Oh yeah, I'm already pretty sure at least.
And so what's so cool about you knowing it now is that you can help them navigate. Like, think of this. It's hard to be a teenage girl anyway. But to be a teenage girl that's a high sensitive.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Well, I was wondering how you do it with 6 kids, because I used to think I wanted a lot of kids when I was young. You know, we all have a lot of kids in our faith. And then, you know, I didn't get married until much later, and I ended up only with 3. And I look at my 3 and I'm like, this is like like my limit. I couldn't do more than 3. So I don't know how people, like, you know, you do 6.
Well, but you know what? It's overwhelming to me. And I came from a family of only 4, and it overwhelms me. But here's what's interesting too, though, is that in the end, I think we're all here to just experience life and the adversities of life, right? So do you remember that when God separated on the days, the first 7 days, when he was creating the world, he had to separate opposing elements, light from dark, you know, the earth from the what was it, from the space, or from the water from the earth, from male and female. So it was always separation. So I think of ourselves really down here as our job is, it's not the volumes you need to experience. It's simply the separation, the good from the evil in the space. And so a high sensitive mom with 3 kids is like having 6 kids.
Yeah.
Your depth of experience is profound. And so again, I think we do like this idea that we need a lot of numbers. But I think the most important thing a high sensitive would know is they need to do what God's telling them to do. So high sensitives are very attuned, if they'll be attuned, and then let God tell you how many kids Annette needs.
You know what? That's a perfect segue, and I have got to read this quote. I heard this. If any of you that are members of the church have not checked out Book of Mormon Central videos, you've got to go. These 2 guys are awesome. But they read this quote last Come Follow Me by Patricia Holland during the video, and I'm like, that's high sensitivity right there, that lady. Okay, so this is her quote. Patricia Holland, this is from Portraits of Eve, which I have not been able to find. It's a book somewhere she wrote in the 70s. It says, our Father in heaven needs us as we are growing to become. He has intentionally made us different from one another so that even with our imperfections, we can fulfill his purposes. My greatest misery comes when I feel I have to fit what others are doing or what I think others expect of me. I am not happy when I am comfortable. I'm most happy when I'm comfortable being me and trying to do what my Father in heaven and I expect me to be. For many years, I tried to measure the, I can't even my own writings. I tried to measure the the oftentimes quiet, reflective, thoughtful Pat Holland against the robust, talkative, and energetic Jeffrey R. Holland, for those of you who know who that is, and others with like qualities. I have learned through several fatiguing failures that you can have joy in being bubbly. You can't have joy in being bubbly if you are not a bubbly person. It is a contradiction in terms. I have given up seeing myself as a flawed person because my energy level is lower than Jeff's, and I don't talk as much as he does, nor as fast. Giving this up has freed me to embrace and rejoice in my own manner and personality in the measure of my own creation. Ironically, that has allowed me to admire and enjoy Jeff's ebullience even more.
Yeah.
So I relate to both Jeff and Patricia, but I just thought it was awesome that she's like, we are here for who we are, and let's embrace who we are and make the most of it and not try and fit somebody else's mold. And like for me, that resonated because I grew up trying to fit some other mold, not realizing that I was this Ferrari. I was like, why am I not being a good Chevy? You know, why am I having such a difficult time? So that brings me to the next thing. For those people that are looking from the outside in and they're like, they're not high sensitives and they may be listening to this, how can they help us high sensitives in, relating to us?
Well, I mean, one key to the whole thing is, so you drive the car you've got, right? So you can be a Corvette. A Corvette is a Chevy that's really, really awesome. And Corvettes many times can be just as effective as a Ferrari. So you can always improve yourself to be better and better. But another is just to try to understand what others are going through. Try to understand there must be a good reason why some people stress out so much more. And don't always attribute everything to weakness or strength, because a Ferrari isn't weaker because it doesn't go up a mountain. A Ferrari is strong when it's on its track. And when a Ferrari isn't on track, it's not in its realm to be able to show its strength. So if somebody is actually not quite living up to what you would think, and you first maybe assume that they might have other issues, they might, and be sensitive to it. A lot of high sensitives are way overly sensitive to those things for others. But so just give other people the benefit of the doubt. Don't assume it's a moral issue, that they're not strong enough, that they don't have enough integrity. Assume that there's probably a lot more going on that you don't know. And maybe one of the things you could do is, if you see that they have the signs of high sensitivity, if they do blow up, if they do need breaks, if they do all these things, if they tend to hide more, you might want to get them the book, The Highly Sensitive Person, and go learn how to be that with them so you can help maximize their strength.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
This is great. So you're going to have this workshop starting at the end of June.
Yeah.
You can go sign up right now by going to matttownsend.com and clicking on a little button at the top.
Yeah, the button at the top will just get you on the mailing list for the group. It's when we launch it, right now, if also you can go to my Instagram page, we'll be announcing it, or I'm on my Facebook page. Just look for Matt Townsend, and we'll be announcing it. We'll give you plenty of time, and then whenever you start, you can always start. You'll always start with the first lesson. So you don't have to start when we're starting. We're trying to get everything recorded so you all can get going at your own pace, and you can start anytime you want. And then we literally it will be ongoing for about a year. There will be brand new content every day.
Sweet. That's exciting. That's really exciting.
Pretty cool. It's a lot of work, but I've got the content, and I mean, honestly, the research behind it is incredible. We'll get into habits. We'll get into mission. We'll get into your strengths. Once you just understand your strengths, that alone will change your life.
Yeah, already I feel
it's
so much more empowered.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's a good gift. And just know you're normal.
Yeah.
It's normal to be a Ferrari.
Yeah. You know what? Before I go, it's funny that you kept mentioning Ferrari, because when I was in my early 30s, I dated this guy, and he's like, well, you're a Ferrari, and you're just high maintenance. And I was like, huh.
Thank you.
So I do think of us as high maintenance.
We are. No, we are. We are.
Not in the way that the world thinks where you need to spend a lot of money on that person and pamper them or whatever. No, it's just that we need to make sure that we are fine-tuning ourselves, giving ourselves the break that we need when we need it. And because when we are taken care of and when we take care of ourselves, we really do perform.
Oh yeah.
But
we make more than enough to cover for our costs.
Yes.
We're equally, and the cool thing is we can do more and less. We see more and less. We sense more and less. So it's not like, it's just the difference between a Ferrari on a racetrack and a Chevy Impala. They're both great.
Right.
When we're on track, nobody can stop us. When we're off track, we're a nightmare.
Yes. So we need to make sure we're on track.
Yeah.
So that's my message to everyone out there is if you're recognizing yourself in this, first go find that book. What's it called again?
Highly sensitive person.
Yes. Go find that book, read it. It gives you a good foundation, a good starting point. Start, looking at your life and figuring out what you can be doing differently. And then I say, let's jump on to MattTownsend.com and let's all do this journey together because I'm excited. I'm excited for myself. And I have friends I'm going to be sharing this podcast with as soon as I publish it and say, this is you.
This is you. You got to watch this. You know what else it is, by the way? That we're going to have a really robust community on Facebook. That'll be a private community for anybody that's in the program with us. And we'll be sharing best practices, latest ideas, really cool stuff on that.
Yay. Awesome. Yeah, it's much easier to feel like.
Yeah, the Ferrari Club.
Yeah, a Ferrari Club. I like it. Way cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Annette. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. All the stuff that's going on, I'm like, I need some positivity and some, some humor, and I knew I would get it from you. So
you're awesome. You're awesome.
Thank you very much. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. Go again, like I said, to AnnetteTalks.com and subscribe. Go to iTunes and whatever you do there. Go to YouTube, subscribe, share, and thank you for listening to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness.